Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, let's jump right in, because today we're looking at something absolutely crucial, a fascinating approach to conflict resolution and emotional maturity. We've literally all been there. A disagreement spirals, feelings get hurt, and suddenly, bam, what started as a tiny little issue threatens to ruin a perfectly good relationship. But what if there was a simple, structured way to totally short-circuit that negative loop? Today, we're unpacking the anatomy of collaborative resolution. We're going to explore how to tackle conflicts head-on without leaving a trail of damaged relationships in our wake. So let's look at the exact mechanics of keeping our social bonds strong, even when it feels like everything is going wrong. To really wrap our heads around the underlying psychology here, let's start with a perfectly distilled, super low-stakes scenario. Picture Mia and Sam. We've got a classic situational frustration on our hands. Mia is deeply frustrated because Sam just accidentally knocked over her block tower. Now, sure, this might seem like a simple childhood anecdote, right? But it actually represents the exact kind of flashpoint we experience in adult life all the time. Think about it. A mistake happens, an inconvenience occurs, and instantly, our human brains just want to assign blame. The instinct is to lash out at the person standing closest to the wreckage. But how Mia handles this? Well, it actually gives us a brilliant blueprint for navigating interpersonal disagreements with incredible grace. Now, what's really interesting about Mia's response to this whole catastrophe is her exact phrasing. Instead of yelling or insulting her friend, she just says, "I'm not mad at you, I'm mad at the mess." Think about that for a second. She completely detaches her negative emotions from the person who caused the problem. Instead, she points all that intense energy squarely at the problem itself, the literal mess on the floor. This single sentence is an absolutely vital component of emotional maturity. It basically tells the other person, hey, you and I, we are still good, but this situation we're in right now, definitely not. And by making that crystal clear distinction, she completely diffuses any threat to their relationship. And that brings us to the core theory we're exploring today: separating the people from the problem. Essentially, this means allowing yourself to be genuinely upset about an issue while actively remembering to stay kind to your friend or your partner or your colleague. You can think of this concept as a highly effective antidote to ruined friendships caused by simple accidents. See, we are so used to intertwining the mistake with the maker of the mistake. It's almost automatic. But when you actively decouple them, you give yourself permission to be frustrated by the circumstances without having to turn the person standing right next to you into an enemy. You protect the relationship while still totally validating your own very real, very understandable frustration. This actually builds a really powerful conceptual contrast. On one side, you have situational frustrations. So that's the mess, the missed deadline, the burnt dinner, whatever it is. These are inherently temporary, right? They're fleeting circumstances that, while super annoying, will eventually pass. On the other side, though, you have personal relationships, the friend, the partner, the coworker, and these possess enduring value. The fatal mistake we tend to make in a conflict is allowing a temporary situational frustration to inflict permanent damage on an enduring personal relationship. By consciously categorizing your reactions into these two distinct buckets, you ensure that your response is actually proportional to the event, rather than letting it become this devastating attack on someone's character. So how do we actually put this into practice? Well, let's look back at Mia. She demonstrates the crucial first psychological step perfectly. She tells Sam, "I am very sad that my tower fell over. It was a big problem." Now, notice what is entirely absent here. There's zero hostility. No, "you always ruin everything," or "you're so clumsy." None of that. She is expressing her negative emotions, the sadness and the frustration, absolutely cleanly. She owns her feelings about the event without directing any blame or hostility towards Sam as an individual. And this is so vital because, let's be honest, suppressing your feelings just doesn't work. It usually just leads to resentment down the line. You have to express the emotion, for sure, but you have to do it in a way that describes the impact of the event, not the perceived flaws of the person. From that one interaction, we can actually extract a highly repeatable framework. It's the anatomy of collaborative resolution, and it happens in 3 distinct phases. Step 1, you express those negative emotions, just like Mia did, cleanly and honestly. Step 2, you actively remove blame from the equation. You verbally confirm that the person is not the target of your anger. And step 3, you pivot to fixing the problem together. When you follow this exact sequence, you aren't just surviving a conflict. You're actively using the conflict as a mechanism to demonstrate trust and teamwork. You're systematically dismantling the psychological defenses that usually block a resolution from happening in the first place. And you can see the immediate, real-world payoff of this framework in Sam's response. He says, "I'm sorry, Mia, let's fix the tower together." Because Mia didn't attack his character, Sam literally never felt the need to get defensive. He didn't have to make excuses or attack her back just to protect his ego. Instead, the complete lack of blame opened the door instantly to a collaborative solution. By focusing on the fallen tower instead of pointing a finger, Mia basically recruited Sam as an ally to help clean up the mess. They're now a team facing a shared obstacle rather than two adversaries fighting each other. And that is the true leverage you gain by attacking the problem. It transforms the person who made the mistake from an opponent into a partner. Now, zooming out from the playground for a second, these principles map perfectly onto our everyday adult lives. Whether you're dealing with a spouse, a friend, or even a colleague in a high-stakes corporate environment, the essential elements of resolution remain exactly the same. You must emphasize kindness, even when you're deeply irritated. You have to prioritize clear, honest communication over being passive-aggressive. You have to relentlessly attack the problem in front of you. When you do all these things, you maintain strong social bonds. Because let's face it, things are going to go wrong. Mistakes are absolutely inevitable. But if you have these specific tools in your toolkit, you ensure that those inevitable mishaps don't just steadily chip away at the foundation of your relationships. Which really brings us to the ultimate takeaway of this explainer. What we've been looking at today isn't just some nice psychological theory. It is a highly practical tool for navigating interpersonal disagreements with true grace and emotional maturity. Does it require a fundamental shift in mindset? Sure, it definitely requires us to pause for a fraction of a second before we react, to really separate the mess from the friend. But that tiny pause, that conscious decision to protect the relationship while aggressively addressing the issue, it elevates our entire approach to conflict. It proves that we can easily hold two truths at once, that a situation can be deeply frustrating, and that the person across from us is still totally worthy of respect, kindness, and collaboration. So I want to leave you with this final thought, and it's a genuine challenge for you to take into your own life. How will you attack your next problem instead of the person you are dealing with? The next time a metaphorical block tower gets knocked over in your life, whether that's a scheduling mix-up, a forgotten chore, or maybe a major project failure at work, will you default to instinctual blame? Or will you have the emotional maturity to step back and say, hey, I'm mad at the mess, not at you? The choice is entirely yours, and honestly, it just might be the key to keeping your relationships unbreakable. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will see you next time.